I had another surprise in my post office box last week. It was another book, and I think it's from Acer Rubrum, however I say that, because I really haven't given out that post office box to many people. So I wanted to share it with you. It's called Food That Really Schmucks, and it's about the Mennonites in a certain Ontario in Canada and their cookbook. And believe it or not, when I first started reading the beginning of this cookbook, I teared up, and let me explain why. In the very beginning, there's, okay, just get this section here. The author, Edna, is talking, and she said, "I was in a panic the first time I invited some rather special people from Toronto to have dinner at our cottage. They were prominent writers and editors with their wives who frequently traveled all over the world, ate in sophisticated dining rooms, talked and wrote columns about fabulous foods, and were proud of their own gourmet cookery. So what could I serve them that they would find tasty and interesting?" And you know, she talks about how she went through all her recipes and was kind of in a panic. And then one of her friends says, "Well, cook what you know best. I mean, your cooking is great." And that reminded me of my mom. I remember she was having my dad's boss and wife over for dinner, and my mom was this fabulous cook. She cooked from scratch, and she made real food, and it was fantastic. And here she was panicking about having them over, and she said, "I have to make something special and whatever." And I kept saying, "Mom, every meal you make is special. It's fantastic. They will be happy with it." And I guess the point is sometimes people don't understand that simple fare country cooking is, to me, some of the best cooking out there. But then I went further into the book. And this is when it really reminded me of my mom. She's saying, she tells us, "Put a little handful of this, or a big handful of that, a pinch of one thing, or a half an eggshell of something else, or a lump the size of butternut. It's always flour to stiffen, or enough to make a thin batter." And that so reminded me of my mom and her sisters, because I remember trying to, how do you make these bot pie noodles? Well, it's a half an eggshell of water and blah, 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 blah. There were no measurement cups she used or anything like that. So it was always really, really hard to translate some of her cooking into actually written recipes. And that's what this woman has tried to do with some of the Mennonite recipes, and it's great. Mother's pot roast, veal tongue, and yes, my parents used to make tongue, chicken with dumplings, Norm's chicken potato chip casserole, that sounds different, and a lot of great desserts are in this book. So what made me tear up? Well, I do have kind of distant Mennonite relatives in Indiana. It was on my mother's side. I have not seen them in a long, long time, but my mom and her sisters, my mom was born in 1907. She learned how to cook from her mother, and this book so reminded me of my mom and her sisters and how they cook. I couldn't help but tear up because my mom and her sisters were fantastic cooks, and I just wish I could even come close to that. There was no such thing as really using a recipe. Most of it was right up here, and they improvised often. So this is a great little cookbook that reminds me of that. I love reading old cookbooks and seeing how things have changed, and sometimes maybe not for the better, sometimes for the better. We definitely have a different fat content most of our recipes nowadays, but we also have a much different exercise routine. We're not working, most of us, on the farm doing heavy labor all day. Anyway, Acer, I really, really enjoyed this book. I'm just getting into it. And again, it is Food That Really Schmucks. And I think it's fantastic. I hope you give it a chance if you find this cookbook in the store. I'm going to try to make some of the recipes that I can share with you. So this is Prepper Potpourri saying thank you so much for the memories, Acer. And as always, please subscribe, share the knowledge, thumbs up if you like this video.